All right, folks, Ozark Season 4, Part 2, the finale. Finally, it's over. Let's talk about it. First of all, I do have a review of Ozark Season 4 Part 1. If you want to check that out, that should be up there. I enjoyed the first part of the season. I thought it was, a bit of a return to form. So imagine my shock when we come back just months later. Same season, technically, Part 2. That's like an ambulance. Really interrupting my, just passed. Okay. Return to form, Ozark Season. Yeah, so imagine my surprise. I was really expecting this to just be smooth sailing, but it wasn't. It wasn't, and for a finale of one of my favorite shows for a few years now, to be this underwhelming, it was disappointing. So let's get into why. So first of all, folks, I started it off, again, I'm telling you, I was expecting just it to be the same old Ozark, but then you start off episode 1, and you're dealing with Ruth's grief. There will be spoilers, by the way, for all of Ozark, because this is the finale, so don't watch if you don't want spoilers. But you're dealing with Ruth's grief, and really odd choice. The director of this episode was Amanda Marsalis, is her name. She had only directed one episode of Ozark prior to this in season 3, but for some reason she directed 4 of part 2 of season 4 episodes. So just in the back half, that's 7 episodes, she directed 4 of them. She directed over half of the final episodes of Ozark. So interesting decision there. I'm not sure why. But Nas the rapper, is playing throughout the entirety of this episode. A lot of different songs. I don't know whose decision that was. I'm sure somebody, maybe the director likes Nas. I really don't know. And I like Nas, but it was a very odd decision that felt very out of place for Ozark. They've never done anything like this before. I get it, not Ruth and Wyatt or whatever suddenly listen to Nas a lot, even though, again, they just introduced that in this episode. But it was a very odd decision, and it didn't feel very Ozark at all. And then the episode continues, and there's just some, I guess this is the writing too, but I don't know how the writing could have changed so drastically. Maybe I just didn't notice it before. But there's just some ridiculous stuff that happens throughout the season, but also in this episode. Like Javi, this intimidating guy, he was built up to be, kind of a good villain last season, is putting this guy in a urinal. And I'm not that intimidated by, it's disgusting, but I'm not really, super fearful or anything like that. And again, I have to question why we're just, because that guy never comes up again. Nothing about the business guy ever comes up again in the last 7 episodes. And so I'm just a little shocked as to why the scene, that whole little encounter even takes place. So first of all, Ozark Season 4, Episode 8 is, in my opinion, the worst episode of Ozark. Okay? And it also has the worst scene in Ozark. And it's a scene, Ruth is in a diner in Chicago, and she spots the rapper Killer Mike. I knew him instantly. I've seen him. I think he's a funny guy. I like him. And he's just sitting in the diner, and she's like, "Hey, I like your music." And then she asks him about, he asks her what she's listening to. She tells him it's a Nas song. She asks him what he thinks it means. I have no idea how this happened. I have no idea who. Maybe Killer Mike likes the show. Maybe he requested to be in it, right? There's nothing wrong with a cameo. But this scene is the most ridiculous and out of place. This is not Ozark. I'm not watching Ozark. I'm watching an SNL skit of Ozark. I was baffled. I was watching this scene and I was laughing at how hilarious it was that not only, if it were just Killer Mike in the diner or whatever, quick little, hey, that's cool, Killer Mike's in the episode. But for there to be a whole little scene where he explains the meaning of Nas's lyrics to a grieving Ruth in the middle of this, this is the finale of Ozark. What are we doing? Who the hell? It's shocking. I was actually stunned by how ridiculous it was. So Ozark Season 4, Episode 8, the worst of the show, ridiculous moments. And, I was thinking, maybe it's a fluke. Okay, I saw the director at the end. I looked her up. I realized she was doing 4 episodes, and I was like, maybe this isn't going to be good. But I still had hope, right? I still had hope. And so I continued. And then as far as seasons go, there's a difference between being a finale and then being a regular season. If this were a regular season, it wouldn't be a good season. It would be the weakest season of Ozark. But the fact that it's the finale makes it so much worse. And I will tell you that I think it fails as a finale as well, and I will get to that towards the end. But the reason it doesn't work as a regular season is because the stakes are not raised in any significant way. It doesn't feel like we are coming to that climactic point. It doesn't feel like there was no significant... We never really reached that climactic point in Ozark. I suppose maybe. I mean, I could point to a number of things the climactic point could have been, but it was a pretty weak climactic point, if there was one at all. And it doesn't feel like, as a finale, it doesn't feel like we're trending down throughout the season, but it also doesn't feel like, as a standalone, if you were to take these 7 episodes by themselves, it would feel very lackluster. It would have the worst stakes of any Ozark season, the least interesting characters of any Ozark season, and just generally trudging along, not really motivated to go anywhere, do anything. It feels like, they're like, fine, we're done. Let's just finish this up, send it out to Netflix and post it so everybody can be happy and satisfied and we can finally tie off this show. It feels very rushed in terms of, like, it doesn't really feel like they gave a lot of thought to how to conclude this. It's not an easy task, I'm sure. There's a lot of people you need to satisfy. I just think they failed in that task. So as a regular season, it's not very interesting. It's pretty forgettable. Like season 3 of Ozark, I think everybody will agree it's the best season, is incredible. It's got great writing. Every single actor is amazing, right? And then you've got the whole casino plot line. It's just one of the most interesting plot lines, of any show ever, in my opinion. I really like Ozark season 3, and it's because they knew what they were doing. They really raised the stakes. They knew how to give every character some sort of motivation, make every character interesting. And then other seasons of Ozark do that too. But in this season, it feels like they really just did not care and just wanted to get it over with. I had never really noticed this again. I suppose if I were to rewatch, I might notice it more. But some of the dialogue in the season just felt... I don't know if they got different writers. I didn't check that. But it did feel off. It didn't feel like Ozark. And this definitely feels like the least Ozark season of Ozark. It was pretty disappointing. We should talk about the finale now. All right, folks, and then you sort of get to the end. And there was actually one thing I really liked about this season that kind of went nowhere, is the fact that Marty has to sort of take over Navarro's operations in Mexico for one episode. And I think that's a really cool way to take Marty, because he's used to sort of being the financial guy. He's also used to sort of, like, you have to look at his character and what drives him. So he's the financial guy. He's never been the boss. He's never been the top dog. He's always answering to somebody. And that's at work. Even at home, he's always answering to his wife, Wendy. That's a central theme to the final 7 episodes. They bring it up multiple times. His kids bring up multiple times that he's always doing what mom says. Ruth brings it up too. And it does bother him. It seems to bother him that he's always doing what Wendy says. But the writers don't care. They don't care because nothing ever happens with it. So can you imagine if the show ended with Marty finally breaking? He does one turn in Mexico as the new Navarro. He realizes that he's good at it. He realizes that he's great at it. He realizes that he doesn't need Wendy. He realizes that he doesn't need Navarro, and that this is what he's cut out for. And maybe you end with Marty taking over the cartel, or maybe getting too big for himself and dying before he can take over the cartel, or getting arrested, or something like that. Something like that that makes it interesting, that gives Marty a satisfying conclusion to his arc, instead of just making threads and then letting them run even though the show is over. Like, that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. So that was one thing I liked. You have a new villain. You have a new antagonist introduced. And Javi was introduced season 4, part 1, and he was a good villain. But typically you don't really want to introduce your big bad right at the end. For as good a show Breaking Bad is, one of my problems with it is that the end of the show's antagonists, besides Walt, are the neo-Nazis, right? They're interesting antagonists, right? They are. But for them to be the final people that Walt has to face, these guys are really the end goal that Walt has to beat. It's a little lackluster when you had somebody like Gus just a few like just a season ago, or a Tuco at the beginning, right? These guys don't compare, and I think part of the reason is because they're really introduced just at the last minute. And you have something like that here. You have Navarro's sister, Javi's mother. And she is fine. I'm sure in a different season she would have been an interesting antagonist. But for her to be the end antagonist, really, like, again, spoilers, she is responsible for the death of Navarro, and at the end she's responsible for the death of Ruth. And she is the end-all, be-all. She wins. She wins. She walks away winning, and it just doesn't feel right, because we've known her for all of 7 episodes max. Well, like, maybe she was in prior seasons. I really don't remember her, because that's how she really was not paid a lot of attention to as a character, if that's the case. But barely there, and yet already, winning over our other characters. And it just doesn't feel like, if Navarro were to win, even that would be unsatisfying or something like that. But just her as an antagonist in the final 7 episodes, it doesn't feel right. You can't introduce a character like that late and expect us to care about their motivations and about their fate. And then also, I don't know what they were thinking, just bringing so many new ideas in at the end, because the dad comes back, he becomes a key player in this season. My only thought must have been that they didn't want this to be the end. They didn't want season 4 to be the end, and then sort of around the last few episodes, they're like, yeah, this is a good spot to just stop it, because it sort of feels like they were building up to more. Like, if my last criticism about the mom, about Navarro's sister being a villain, like, that would have been fine if this were even the penultimate season. If next season were the last, I'd be pretty excited for the start of next season, knowing that, she's on top. Maybe even if she still killed Ruth. I don't know if that would have happened, but I'd be excited. Or the whole dad plot line here, where the dad starts to take the kids to North Carolina or whatever like that. He's not really a good guy. He's deceiving everyone, yada, yada. Is this final season stuff? Is this the kind of stuff our show should be focusing on its last leg, as we're trying to wind it all down? And the answer is no. The answer is absolutely not. And the problem is, even if it were, it's rushed insanely. Like, the whole back half of the season, he's talking to the kids, right? He's getting them, yada, yada. Pretty interesting. Again, it's not finale level interesting, or even regular season level interesting. But then at the end, he almost has them. And then literally in either the second to last or last episode, I think it genuinely is the last episode, an unconvincing, literally the worst writing. Super lazy, to get the kids back, and all of a sudden everything is fine and dandy. The kids all of a sudden want to be back with their mother. Ruth is sort of used to get the kids to go back with their family. And it just does not feel realistic, believable, compelling. Even if it were believable or realistic, it's just not interesting writing. It's not the kind of writing I've come to know or expect from Ozark, and it was frankly disappointing. So I don't know why they're going through all these storylines, and genuinely this is it. This was Ozark. This was the end of Ozark, and this is the kind of stuff we're exploring. This is season 1 stuff. All right, you're supposed to be building up. You're not supposed to let all of the air out of the balloon right at the last lap. Okay, and that's what Ozark did here. But then I'm going to talk about the end, and this is probably the worst thing. I don't want to say, I definitely had expectations. I had predictions, and I don't want to let that get in the way of my thoughts on the show, but I think I'm being truthful when I say my predictions didn't. My predictions don't get in the way of how I feel about the finale. So I'm going to say it. I predicted Wendy Bird would die. And I expected it. Obviously, that's why I predicted it. And I think it would have been satisfying. I'm sure that's not the only thing you can do with her character to end it. But for her to be sort of completely, I don't know what the writers were thinking. Because at the end, the show ends, Wendy and Marty happily together. After 4 seasons. And we have seen Wendy Bird has had has had a great arc. The greatest arc on the show, one of the greatest arcs in television. Laura Linney has played her spectacularly. But I don't know why now, all of a sudden, Wendy is like redeemed. It feels like she's redeemed. It feels like nobody cares about all the evil shit she's done and about how the fact that she is genuinely one of the most evil people on the show, how she's constantly digging the birds further into a grave, how Marty just seemingly doesn't care, and how the show ends with them, yada da, birds win, da ba da ba da. I don't care. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. Wendy doesn't. This is not the kind of ending it's not a satisfying ending for Wendy Bird. There's not a satisfying ending for Marty Bird, who has been sort of a father figure to Ruth. Oh, that's another thing I should just throw in here now, because again, speaking of characters just thrown back in, this had to have not been the ending originally. There's no way, because I forget her name. Rebecca, the lady at the original, season 1, season 2, is thrown in here for the last season. Why are you bringing this character in the last season? This is it. This is the end. And she's a major figure. She's a massive part of the finale of the show. It's not a good idea. But anyway, I digress. Back to Marty Bird. He's a father figure to Ruth. And he has to make the tough decision that for some reason, he's done everything in his power to help Ruth every other aspect of the show. But right at the end, when this threat, it's a bad threat, like it seems like there's really no good way out, but I mean, there's been worse situations for Marty, that's for sure. And he just lets Ruth die, not a tear shed. It feels like there are no repercussions. My God, I just get more mad the more I fucking think about it. What the hell this is not the Marty Bird we know. It is unrealistic. It's ridiculous. This is not how you write a character who we've known for 4 seasons. It's so rushed. It's ridiculous. And then again, he's not staying with Wendy. They allude to it throughout the season that he's going to leave Wendy. And he, of course, doesn't. It's fine. There are multiple ways to end a character. But you don't end it with doing the exact opposite of the thing you've led up for the show to do. Marty does not stay with Wendy. He sure as hell is not just going to roll over and let Ruth die. Ridiculous. And then the kids, the kids are, I'm conflicted, because on one hand, the show literally ends, the PI comes, he has the damning evidence to convict Marty and Wendy Bird, and you think, the writers are like, oh, Marty and Wendy are done after all they've done, and then the kids show up, Jonah with a shotgun, and you see Jonah and Wendy, and mirror, they're the opposite of Marty and Wendy, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that after all this, maybe they wanted their kids to be better than them, but it turns out their kids are just the same. I don't like the fact that they smiled at it, really. I don't know that either of them would be particularly happy at that fact, especially Marty. I don't know that he, except for the financial aspect of Jonah, I don't think he wants his kids to be murderers. But the kids should not be this happy with the family on the last episode, given what's gone down for the entire show, but especially this past season. Again, Wendy's just not a good person. She's an excellent character, but Jonah, who has just been going back and forth with her all this time, is all of a sudden fine with her for what? Does he have some light switch flick on? If so, we don't see it. There's no indication that he's a changed person or anything. There's no act that changed him in order to make him think this way. And then the show, it's so corny. I forget who directs the finale. But the show ends. Again, they point the gun at the PI, and they black screen, and they fire the gun. Whatever happened to subtlety, right? It's not enough to just show them aiming the gun at the guy. You really need the nail in the coffin that they shot it. Pull a Sopranos, right? Give us the option. Did he really kill him? I don't care, but come on, it's corny. That's a nitpick. I get it, right? That's not a real super serious complaint. If that were my only problem with the finale, God, I'd be a lot happier. But I was upset at the finale going in. I was definitely underwhelmed. But the more I've processed my thoughts in this video, the more I'm just upset that Ozark ends their show like this. And there's just a real feeling that they did not plan for this to be the ending. That they were not prepared to end it. That they were building to something for perhaps another season or something like that. And that they just wanted to cut it off. And so the writing feels lazy. Everything about it feels off. This doesn't feel like Ozark from start to finish. And so, guys, I was going to give Ozark Season 4 Part 2 a B because I still thought it was passable. I still thought I enjoyed more than I disliked, but I don't know that I can say that anymore. But it's not horrible. It's not horrible television, so I don't know that I can go a D. It's really left a sour taste in your mouth, because the rest of the show is so good. If the show just ended well, I could give the overall show, I could feel comfortable giving it an A, the whole show. But it just feels wrong now to even give the rest of the show an A, despite the rest of it being so damn good. Like Ozark Season 3, again, was incredible. But we're not talking about the whole show. We're talking about this little bit of a season. I'm going to give it a C for now. I'm going to give it a little bit of a C, leaning towards a D, actually. But it could definitely also be a B. Maybe I'm a little bit harsh with it. Maybe I'm not remembering as much of the good as I wanted to. But I was very upset with the way Ozark handled its ending. It doesn't feel right. It feels like they've lost the sense of who their characters are. And poor Ruth. Ruth is really sort of the focus of this ending. She's lost everyone. She's trying to build something new. Literally, she's building like a pool at her house for Wyatt and whatnot. And then to just die like that so unceremoniously by a character we just met with no real fallout from her death. I'm going to give Better Call Saul spoilers now for Season 6, okay? So click off if you don't want that. But we just recently watched, again, spoilers, Nacho Varga. Nacho Varga, a character I love, everybody's loved since Season 1. He just died, right? And it's pretty early on in Season 6 to kill off Nacho Varga. I was not expecting that. I was expecting him to die, but for it to be this early is just shocking. But that death was so impactful. They really knew how to handle that death. The other two... low battery. The other two episodes had been leading up to it. You knew sort of it was coming in the back of your mind. And this whole episode was sort of dedicated to Nacho, to giving him that final conclusion. And I assume there will be fallout. You can already see Mike is a little upset. I assume it will affect everyone in the show. And that's how you handle a character death. And Nacho's super integral into Better Call Saul. But I think Ruth is probably more integral into Ozark. And for her death to be handled so disrespectfully, I'm going to honestly say, it does not feel like she has earned this death, if that makes sense. It does not feel like the writers gave enough justification for this to be how Ruth goes out, and it's so disappointing because she's an incredible character. Julia Garner gave an incredible performance for 4 seasons, and this is the ending they give her. It's upsetting. It's upsetting. And I haven't seen a lot of talk about Ozark Season 4 Part 2, but everything that I have seen, again, admittedly very little, has been positive. And so I don't know if I just watched a different show to everybody else, or, everybody wasn't expecting as much as I was. Maybe not everybody liked Ozark as much as I did originally, but I am unhappy with the way Ozark finished. And I would like some confirmation. Maybe I'm not crazy. I don't know. Folks, if you liked Ozark Season 4 Part 2, let me know in the comments down below. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Obviously, this is just my opinion, right? I'm not saying anything from a factual basis. I didn't like the way pretty much all of the birds got their ending. Pretty much everybody in the show got their ending. And so maybe that's just an opinionated thing. Who knows? But Ozark Season 4 Part 2, I can sadly say, has tainted my view of the show. I honestly don't know that I'll be able to recommend it with the same enthusiasm as I did before. And it's really sad. What a finale. You really got to stick the landing, because it'll kill you if you don't. And I never watched Game of Thrones. I was never burned by a finale like everybody else was in that show. But now I know what it feels like. And it really is just the worst feeling. A show you've loved so much, that has given so much to you, for it to end so disappointingly. That's how I feel about Ozark Season 4 Part 2. So again, I'm going to give it a C. I really did not enjoy it. We will always have the rest of the show, especially Season 3. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Ozark Season 4 Part 2. All right, folks, that's my review. Ran a little long. Definitely the opposite of Ozark Season 4 Part 1, which I didn't have too much to say about. Again, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Still a great year for television. I got to be honest, no complaints. Well, yes, complaints, because I just complained about, I've said enough. Folks, I'm about to go watch Better Call Saul because it's Monday and a new episode, I believe just dropped, or if not just dropped, is about to drop. So I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.